Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session. I'm David McCulloch, co-founder of Accelerate, which is our lead generation service via LinkedIn. So the objective of today, really, and what I hope you're going to get out of today, is to hear Sam's journey. Sam's the owner of Hack Brands, and we'll hear a little bit about his journey to LinkedIn lead generation. So I'll introduce Sam a little later on. But there's really three things, I guess, that we want you to get out of today's session. So for agencies, we know it's tough out there. There's a lot of people hitting the pause button in terms of marketing spend, and hopefully we can show you an opportunity to bring lead generation to your clients, because ultimately what clients want is to win more business, particularly in the tough times. So hopefully that will be useful for agencies. For everyone then, give you a chance to see how LinkedIn can actually work as a lead generation methodology and as a tool. We know there's gold in there. It's just getting that gold out is sometimes a challenge. And the final thing, I guess, is for everyone is if nothing else comes out of today's session, is to give you a few top tips, which if you apply can make a real difference to your business and lead generation activities on the LinkedIn platform. So that's kind of the three takeaways for today. But before we get started, I'm known for telling stories, so I'll tell a little story. Anybody who's heard it before, apologize, but I'll keep it short. But look, it is relevant because it talks about our journey to LinkedIn and why we adopted LinkedIn as a lead generation engine. So if we go back 6-7 years ago, we were an agency providing all the traditional marketing agency stuff, and that included telesales and telemarketing as part of that lead generation process. So one day I sat in with our telesales guys. They weren't happy. They don't like, someone looking over their shoulder, but I felt compelled just to sit in, as I do from time to time, just to see how the guys are getting on. And one thing that struck me was the lack of talk time, and more importantly, the lack of meaningful talk time. So what I was saying was a lot of waiting to get through, trying to get through to the right person. The auto dials were kicking in. The guys were working really, really hard, but they weren't getting the results. And I asked myself the question, would I be happy if I was paying for this service? And you know what? I don't think I would. So I thought, look, I'm going to go to the client and I'm going to have a conversation. So I started the conversation. Look, how are things going? Are you happy? How do you think things are progressing? And his answer was, yeah, it's grand, which is the kind of polite business answer, which we get sometimes, which isn't necessarily the truth, but it's yeah, it's grand, it's going okay. And I said, really, what about the outcomes? Are you happy with the outcomes? And this was back to the kind of aha. He said, no, I'm not, but I'm never happy with telesales. It doesn't really work, but it's a necessary evil. We kind of feel we have to do it, and we do our best. We try it every now and again. And I thought, well, that's not, as a business owner, getting out of bed every morning and being slightly better than average, isn't that motivational, and it's definitely not sustainable. So we knew at that stage we needed to do something different. And if I look back in at what we were doing all the traditional stuff. We were doing email, SEO, inbound, all the things you'd expect. But at night, what I was doing as the leader of the business in terms of the sales process was I was on LinkedIn. I was checking people out. I was connecting to people. I was getting some results, but not super great results. So I came in during the day, did all the traditional stuff, home in the evening, did the LinkedIn stuff. We thought if we change that around and put the focus of LinkedIn during the day, and maybe give myself a break in the evening, how would that look? And it looked good. We started to get better engagements. So Adele and I set about building a platform, building a process, building some methodologies which allowed us to do lead generation at scale. And that was the aha moment in terms of, and our business pivoted. And we became very focused on lead generation. Yes, we do a lot of marketing things, of course, but all to help the lead generation process. So that that's our story. I'm going to introduce you to Sam, and in fact, I'll let Sam introduce himself. So, Sam, tell us a bit about yourself and Hack Brands, and we'll start here a little bit about your journey to Accelerate.
Thanks, David, and thanks everyone for joining. The Hack Brands is essentially it's a business growth agency supporting companies to scale and grow business. It transitioned from, over the last 2 or 3 years, myself and my business partner Steve, we worked in a very, very clearly defined franchise consultancy. So it was helping, two-sided. One was helping franchise companies to go to market or develop themselves into a franchise system. You can't just copy and paste, and there's a lot of things that they need in place. It would help them to go to market essentially, and then on the other side of that would help them find franchisees, which is not easy, because it's not like a job market. You have to have people that are ready to invest, but the right type of person. A lot of people spent time building their own business and then they're handing over their brand to somebody else, and so the personas needed to be right. And so in that business is very clear approach to how how to go to market, but and it was the same process for most brands. We found there's a lot of companies that like the idea of franchising may have wanted a different route to market, so it could be partnership models or licensing and that. So we wanted to kind of, with Hack Brands, we've evolved that into a much more bespoke service for clients. So we work with, at the moment, we're with about 11 different clients from 4 or 5 different countries. We've got a number of new brands coming over in the next couple of months, more from overseas, bringing it into the UK and Ireland market. And it's more, we're trying to use a more personalised approach, as I said, less cookie cutter kind of copy and paste, and more bespoke in terms of how we work with clients and help them scale. Franchising being one of those routes, but there's other avenues that we can help them take.
Yeah. Well, look, when we first met back in sort of early 2021, tell me a bit about the challenges, I guess, that you were facing. I mean, we were coming out of that kind of COVID, still in COVID mode. What were the challenges you were seeing that your clients were pushing onto you?
So a lot of it, there was a lot of things that were kind of all over the place, but not in a bad way. There was people, there's a high level of redundancy. So people did have money to invest, and they thought, what, I've lost my job. COVID's changed things. I might not want to travel to London or to Dublin or to Belfast or wherever anymore. I'm quite happy working from home, having my own freedom. They might have got a redundancy and have money to invest, and they're looking for the right opportunity. Whereas prior to COVID, it was very clear. People knew what they wanted. They wanted to stop what they wanted to do and open up a pizza shop, a coffee shop, whatever it may be. And so on one side, there's a lot of positivity in the fact that there was a lot more sort of different types of businesses that were franchising, and there was a lot more people that maybe hadn't thought about it before, because they're looking for not only a replacement of job, but a replacement of what I'm doing. And there was this whole New Year's resolution thing that went on for about 2 years because of COVID. People were home too long and they wanted to kind of evolve what they were doing professionally. Yeah. So it was kind of it was a little bit all over the place, but in not in a terrible way. But the typical, going back to sort of 21, when we first got talking, generally most franchise companies, we work with established brands and we work with brand new brands, so we try to take the best of everybody and give the right advice. Very few people were doing much on LinkedIn. They were talking about their brands, or announcing a new franchisee or announcing a new store opening or whatever it may be, but it was more updates and more just general information. It was rarely, in my experience, rarely used as a lead gen opportunity. Some people even put franchise opportunities through as job adverts, which is pricey, as you know. And so it's a job, and then people say managing director of this brand, and then you realise actually they need to invest in it, which is I wouldn't see that working too well. The main way people advertised really was through franchise portals. There's 5 or 6 in the UK. There's 1 or 2 really in Ireland, and what you do is you put your advert up. You're surrounded by hundreds of other brands, hundreds of other opportunities, and it's kind of standing out from the page. But you also have no control about who's inquiring. And on the receiving end, when we would help with recruitment, somebody could inquire, and you've got a name, an email address, and a phone number. That's it. You might have a little comment section, but rarely people fill it in. And you don't know what's on the other end of those calls. So it's very much quantity over quality, no control. But it's a good avenue to get a number of leads. Some clients prefer to pay per lead, and that can be for a brand that looks really good, that can be pricey because you've got no control over who's inquiring. Quite a bit. Some of it's monthly costs, and it was really that kind of lack of control. And there's no real proactive approach to it. The way you try to select people to come to your brand was by the language you used, and sometimes it was a matter of overestimating the investment just to kind of make sure people realise, and then you kind of, you know, getting less leads but more quality over that. So they found there was a lot of not much control, and not really any information on the leads that are coming in, essentially.
No, that's a great summary. I remember those conversations. I was taken aback by the fact that you could be creating hundreds of leads, but when you actually analysed them, it came up with a very little positive outcome in terms of people who became a client.
Yeah, 100%. When you look at efficiencies, really, I mean, on average, and, you know, I'm sure there's people watching this that may have seen that, you know, our agency might be franchise related and may have had different experiences, but when I'm taking this across probably close to about 50 brands, all different, B2B, food and drink, retail, all different sort of sectors. But in general, during sort of 21 and 22 and 2020 as well, you know, for every 100 leads you may get in, people provide all the information. They might not provide an email address and a phone number, but normally we try to make them do all three, to make it as a forced thing that they do all three. 50% of those 100, so 50 of them won't even answer the phone ever again. And they might even, if you do get hold of them, they've no idea that they ever even acquired, even though they ask how you got my information. And then of that 50 that do answer the phone, you know, half of them wouldn't realise it was an investment or wouldn't be right. And then of the 25 that you end up having a proper conversation with them, you'd have to obviously book a range of meetings because it's a big investment. So it may, some of them don't show up to meetings. So you really, of that 100, you're probably having a proper, initially a Zoom call nowadays. But you know, somebody showing up to a Zoom call on time and prepared, maybe 10 of the 100. And then of that 10, you're kind of working around that, then going down the pipeline in terms of, it's not as simple as just saying, here's a franchise fee and away we go. You know, you're talking about significant investment in, depending on what this, you know, what their business was. But so yeah, it could be like 1 in 100 essentially, even on a good day.
Yeah. Well, look, and when we first spoke, I think you'd had some experience of other LinkedIn tools. I'll say tools because there's a lot of sort of those Chrome add-ons and various tools out there. Well, that was a bit of a barrier. We took us a little bit of a while to dance around that for sure before you thought, are you guys doing something different or just another tool? So tell me about your experience with some of those other LinkedIn services that maybe just didn't work for you quite as well.
I would be a relatively good user of LinkedIn professionally, but more so in terms of updates and things like that. I've done, you know, job campaigns previously through it for other companies and things, but so I kind of know my way around LinkedIn. So when my first engagement was actually because it's obviously one side of the business is bringing on new clients to work with us, the other side of the business is finding people for our clients to buy franchises off. So to segment that out, I used a couple of different agencies or models for driving, you know, LinkedIn leads essentially for myself to find new clients. So I didn't, but with the intention of, if it works well, I would then, you know, say to some of our clients, this might be a good way, you know, for you to use it. So I found when I did those, I mean, generally speaking, you know, I'm giving my, you know, in this case, it was me. It wasn't on the behalf of the client, but regardless, you know, your professional integrity is important. And so I was given that control over, which I was fine with. And the messages were going out to a number of companies to say, hey, do you want to franchise your business? And I always remember the first week of one campaign, literally, like, of the number of the replies that came back in, because I was looking at them, but trying not to be tempted to answer the message, let the campaign do its thing. But you would have like government officials saying, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm cringing, so I'm thinking, I'm asking a government official how they're going to franchise their business, and I'm just thinking it's almost embarrassing. So you have to jump in and kind of protect yourself. So I found there was a little bit, you know, your reputation's important, and also it found it was a bit scattergun, kind of the way it was just spread out, like just tell everybody that you want to franchise your business and see what comes in. And it wasn't me. It didn't feel like it was me when you're communicating. It wasn't really me. It was less natural. That's the way the messaging was done. And in some ways, the statistics were okay. But you almost had to kind of apologize first.
It's not a good start.
Yeah. but it was reaching out to people. It was getting my network, building my network, obviously, but it wasn't really the right people. And I always thought to myself, there's got to be a better solution out there with more control, with more control and more visibility on who you're speaking to, essentially, and who you're connecting into. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, and you did take a chance with us, which obviously it's paid dividends, which is great. And when we built the system, and we're always refining it, we built it as an enterprise level platform. It had to be able to function in a B2B enterprise context. Otherwise, people will just maybe try it and then, it's not working for me. I don't want to lose control. And even the management information on that. So we don't pride ourselves on being feature rich. We have got all these additional features. We haven't built it, to be full of features. We've built it to be full of the features which you need to run an effective campaign. So we focus in. We're actually a sales business, not really a marketing business. We would say we're more sales focused than marketing focused, because we're starting conversations directly with the client on behalf of you or your client. So that's great feedback. In terms of fast forward to now, what does that look like in terms of what percentage of your business would be, your lead generation would now come through this process rather than maybe some of the traditional methods?
I think it's flipped really, and some of it's actually, I've had to sort of trust the process a lot myself as well, working with you guys on understanding what LinkedIn is. Whether it's any sort of social platform, one thing people always say is it takes time. You have to put time and commitment into it, whether it's social media or LinkedIn or whatever it is. You can't just do something and it works. You have to take time to nurture it really. And so I'd say using LinkedIn as an overarching thing is important to understand. You can't just click something on, put your name in, and then send messages out. You have to kind of make sure your profile's right, and people are connecting to you. They're seeing what you're doing, and they have to kind of see that first. So we did obviously a bit of work with you guys on making sure the profile said what it said. People are going to have a couple of seconds to say not connected to this guy. So we wanted to make sure the connection rates were high. So I did initially I did a few campaigns. One campaign running under my own name, just growing out to people, just saying, is franchising or is scaling your business? And we thought about different routes to scaling your business. Exclusively did that kind of in Ireland, just keeping, just speaking to people here, and then obviously transitioned over to using it for a number of the brands. And we've run, I think at this stage, we've run about 8 campaigns, 8 or 9 different campaigns. A couple of them are 2 campaigns for the same company in different territories, but most of those now, most of our clients are now running campaigns through us and to accelerate. Some people, we had different challenges at the beginning. If I had a B2B sort of franchise business opportunity on behalf of a client, straight away LinkedIn was an obvious option. So because you could really target who you're looking for. But I've used campaigns now for online training providers, for B2B kind of mobile technology. I've used the campaign for a Mexican restaurant in the Middle East, which was always challenging. When you're looking at a franchise, people think of takeaway food. When you're looking at the portfolio of McDonald's franchisees, they could come from all walks of life. They could have been an ex-doctor or nurse, or they could have been somebody who's worked in food, or they could have been anyone, investment bank or whatever. People have just stopped and gone, I want to buy McDonald's, for example. So it's really that would have been a kind of scattergun. So we kind of went to people from certain sectors of a certain level and really used the search optimization to hone in on a really, as you sort of use the point of like laser focusing on a real smaller demographic. We actually had one business who was a co-working business, and they weren't looking for franchising. They were looking for hotel partners, and literally the search was in Europe, mainland Europe, just focusing on the owners of big sort of office developments and hotels in order to put their business inside of those. So it was about 60 people, and it was all about connect me with these 60 people, and actually we connected them with about 45. And once that connection was made, then a conversation flowed separately. So we've used it for very broad range from that one, which is very small, up until a current campaign we're running where we know the target demographic, which is pretty tight, but it's still 13,000 people. So you're looking at 13,000 people knowing that campaign is going to go on for a long time, and the results are very, very, very clearly. So there's a bit of trust on the clients with us. I mean, the way we do it as an agency is we're saying that we're running your campaign. You know, if some of them I've introduced to you, just to get that reassurance that you guys Accelerate. It's not very. I'm not trying to mask it behind a white label that it's Hackbrains doing it. I'm very clear that it's running through Accelerate. But you know, on the other end of the line is me and my team, which means that when somebody replies with a less generic response and they want to ask questions straight away about their company, we can answer on their behalf with authority and with knowledge, as opposed to somebody else who doesn't know the business and they're just doing generic replies. So it's come with trust, but it's been really, really popular. Everybody and everyone's
look, it's really good. It's really good summary. You've touched on a couple of things there, and I think, you know, I said I would give some kind of actionable insights to the guys on today's session. So the profile was a good one to talk about, which is, you know, it's often overlooked. You set up your LinkedIn profile, you know, you use a network and whatever. When you look at it, you go, it doesn't reflect who I actually am, or it's maybe been written as a CV as opposed to how it should be. So, you know, there's a few tips in there, which is, you know, if you've no banner above your head, then how do people know where you work? You know, so you've got that moment of truth when someone lands in your profile. So make sure it's clear who you work for and what value you bring. That's key. So you're writing your profile, particularly I'm talking to a sales audience now, you know, who are actively trying to engage with that audience. Make sure your profile is clear about the value or about the problems that you actually solve. So don't talk about, you know, if you're a salesperson, I'm going to President's Club 2 years in a row, 4,000% above target, because a buyer will look at that and go, beware, you know. So as part of, you know, so as I say, we're not just a tool, we're actually, you know, technology wrapped in process, wrapped in methodology. So to be able to help agencies give that advice to their clients about how to set the profile up, you know, understanding who your persona is. So it's back to this, you know, the 3 Ps. So profile, persona, and presence. So your persona is absolutely right. It's a huge network, about 850 million people, you know, it's a massive network. But what you need to do then is to break it down to who are the people who are experiencing the pain, who might buy your services to solve that pain. And LinkedIn gives you the ability to do it. Sales Navigator is a bit you have to pay a bit for. And if you're active on that, it's worth its money. I've got another anecdote, which I might bore you with later on. But, you know, if you're serious about lead generation on the platform, then Sales Navigator is a must. But if you're bad and, you know, never use it, then it's a waste of money. So it's back to that piece. But if you want to do the laser search, you got to have Sales Navigator. And then the third P, which is a presence piece, is if I connected to you, Sam, tomorrow, and you never heard from me again on the platform, then what was the point? It's a bit like going to, you know, you spend money going to a networking event, you're flying into London, you go along, I meet you, we shake hands, we exchange cards, and then you never hear from me again. Well, what was the point of going to that networking event? It's the same on LinkedIn. So you should message. So once you're connected to someone, you can message them for free forever. There's no spam, there's no firewalls. It's a one-to-one connection, which is great. So use that. But also talk about your industry, talk about your insights. It amazes me when I speak to a lot of clients that they have insights that they don't realize are insights because, you know, everybody in their team knows it, but everybody outside of their team doesn't necessarily know it. So sharing those stories, sharing some softer things. You know, I was at an event, here's a picture of me at the event. That plays really well by getting people's attention on the platform. So authentic, real, people-focused works when you're posting. And I know that if you've never posted on LinkedIn, it's become this big thing, you know. So take small bites. If you're going to eat the elephant, take it in small bites. Get a post out, like somebody else's post, comment on somebody else's post, and you'd be surprised how over time that starts to engage and raise your profile within that audience. And as salespeople, that's what we're trying to do. But you said an interesting point there about it just doesn't come. It's not like a magic dust where suddenly, you know, everything starts to work. It's kind of like going to the gym. And I know we're into February now, so I'm sure there's a few people who've done the old January gym and now going, not really seeing the results, but tired, really want to go back. well, guess what? In June, you'll not be able to run the marathon, or you'll not have lost the weight, or whatever it happens to be. So LinkedIn's kind of like that. You've got to do a little bit regularly to get the results. If you just jump in every now and again and just go, "Da-da, I'm here, I'm going to do some stuff," it's not going to work for you. But what that'll tell you is LinkedIn doesn't work. Whereas the truth is, if you do a little bit every day or every week, it will start to work. You've just got to give it time. And for agencies, who are saying, well, look, that's a lot of, we don't know that. We have to learn that, and we're going to have to take people off and do that. That's why we built the agency model of what we do, is to enable other agencies to take that service into their clients. And let's go back to, we live in interesting times. There's always challenges. Once you see the marketing agencies start to say, I'm just going to pause that, or we're going to reduce, what they're saying is there's something not right in the business. We need to regroup. See, when they regroup, the next action they will take will be, we need to grow. And that's what lead generation is all about. So if you're equipped with the right engine and tools to help your customers, that puts you in a better position, because they'll cut down on other things, but they'll always come back to what we need is more leads, what we need is more business, and that's where it works well for us. So look, really appreciate your time today, Sam. It's appreciate you're busy trying to sort people out with franchises, but it is good for people to hear your journey to us, and your journey to Accelerate, and how the platforms work for you. Sam's a sociable guy. He'll talk to anybody about anything. So if anybody wants to speak to Sam, his contact details will be coming up, and please get in touch. I'm the same. If you want to hear me talk again, fair. My details will be there, so feel free to get in touch. But look, thanks for tuning in, and best of luck with your LinkedIn activities. See you all very soon.